everybody and welcome to Dynamic GT League's Grit Championship for Race 4 from Lake Maggiore GP2. Let's take a quick look at the current championship standings. Steve F1 leading the way on 49 points, one ahead of Demonar in second place, who is 3 ahead of Mitch in third. Conrad sits in fourth place on 40 points, and then we've got Fluffy Planet in fifth on 31. He's closely followed by SGP and Dave the Harp, tied for sixth place, both on 30 points. And then we've got 7 points back is Twilight in 8th place, and he's just a couple ahead of Formula Gary in 9th. Arpal sits 10th on 18 points, while Hay in 11th is on 17. Tyler's in 12th now on 13 points, with Jason in 13th on 12 points. Jimmy, 14th place for him and 11 points in the bag for him. Rich Blues, 15th place with 6 points. Bunsel on 5 points, and SRI still yet to score. But he's actually going to be in this race, so it'll be interesting to see how he gets on today. So let's take a look at the qualifying order then. Mitch taking pole position with a 141.081 and an unusually large gap back to Steve F1 in second place. He'll start on the front row, but he was 5 tenths of a second slower. Row 2 will see Demonar line up alongside Conrad, and row 3 will see Jason line up alongside SGP. Dave the Harp and Twilight make up row 4, while Artpal and SRI make up row 5. Fluffy will start next to Gary on row 6, and Jimmy qualified 13th, but unfortunately technical issues means he's not actually able to start the race, so an empty slot there will be Hay that'll actually move into 13th place, and Rich Blues will move into 14th. So disaster for Jimmy there, unfortunately having a few lag issues, and sometimes that's just the way it goes. Okay, Mitch with a fantastic pole position. Can he turn it into a win? Back-to-back wins maybe. Let's hand over to the commentators. And joining me on commentary today for the first time in this championship is Gary. How are you, Gary?
I'm alright. Where's Steve?
Basement. Well, I can tell you where Steve is. He's just texted me saying, sorry, I was having a shit, but he's here with us now. How are you, Steve?
I'm all good, yeah. Feeling a bit lighter now.
Good for you. Okay, Mitch on pole position. The lights are about to go out, and away they go, and it looks like a poor start from Jason. Oh, Dave the Harp has had a bit of a moment there. Into the wall he goes. I think Mitch, though, is going to be still leading the race into turn 1. Yes, he is. It sounds like someone's just sucked up their microphone.
Yeah, Mitch has kept the lead, and Steve F1 in second, and Connor and Demonar side by side for third.
Yeah, that they are. So, Gary, how do you reckon the guys are going to get on here today?
Fucking shit.
Oh, that's nice.
Some good, some not so good.
That sounds like Formula Gary might not be having the. Oh, Steve F1 going for the lead of the race in the hairpin. Oh, he can't quite get it done though. I don't think Mitch was quite ready for Steve F1 to be making that attempt at overtake. Yeah, Steve F1 may have just got a little bit lucky there. Interestingly though, regarding the championship battle, having Mitch and Steve F1 in this position is very good for the championship. Demonar in 4th though, not so good for him at the moment. Or Conrad got a little bit slippery as they make S's through the S's. Tricky section of corners there.
Yeah, that was pretty close when Steve F1 and Mitch there just about got through there okay, but looking pretty racy. So yeah, obviously they both want to have that track position up front, and that could be important for the strategy.
It's still looking very tight at the back so far, so not pulling away too much at the moment.
Yeah, all the rear is locked up nice. Oh, Demonar with a big tank slapper. I was about to make a pun about rear ends being tight then, but I better not. Let's see. Interestingly, I say that a lot, but it's not that interesting. As Mitch nearly goes wide. Fuel and tyres for this track. Tyres should be absolutely no problem for all of the drivers around this track. They can take a bit of punishment, as I'm sure Fluffy and SRI are going to give them some punishment. Yes, SRI, yes. Oh, he saved it.
Yeah, that's a slight code round for SRI, but yeah, strategy today. it's a one stop going at 11 laps is pretty straightforward for most drivers, I think. So I think a lot of drivers are going to be going for a one stop, but there is that question mark: will anyone gamble and go for a two stop and do something a little bit different?
Well, for the two stop, you can lap around about a second to a second and a half faster a lap, because if you're going to go for the one stop, you do have to preserve fuel, as Dave the Harm going a bit side. Oh no, he's not going second, not going anywhere.
Someone call the paramedic.
Oh, yeah, he's going to need them.
180 to 0 in no time there. That one's going to hurt.
It definitely is. Steve F1 still on the back of Mitch at the moment. Talking about pace, I mean, qualifying was in the low 141s. I think race pace, Steve F1 having a look up the inside and makes the move on Mitch. A little bit of contact between them, but they'll both survive. Very technical course here at Lake Maggiore. We'll get onto that a little bit more as the race goes on. This final sector, absolutely crucial to get this left-hander and this right-hander done properly, because if you don't, you can easily end up in the wall or spinning around. Oh, and that's all right, spinning around before the corner. May have been assisted by Gary there, and Gary trying to let him through and holding Rich up at the same time.
You've heard of the Scandinavian flick? That's a Scottish flick.
that means something very different on a Friday night in Glasgow. Oh, but a contact between Artpal and Hay there, and that ended up with Hay being off the track, but Artpal trying to give him the position back. So nice to see. Yeah, pace wise, for the guys up at the front, if they're in the 42s, they could be going for a two-stop. 43s hammered on for a one-stop pretty much, because you would need to do sort of 43s, 44s maybe to make the fuel really last those 11 laps comfortably. So looking at the first timed lap proper, lap 2, 1:44 for the guys at the front. So looks like Mitch and Steve F1 may be going for that one-stop option. Conrad, though, was caught right in on them, which could hint at Conrad trying to go for that two-stop option. Demonar's dropped off a little bit, as has SGP, and given the pace that they had, in practice at least, I wouldn't be surprised if they are preserving fuel at the moment.
Yeah, the fact that Steve F1 was aggressive in those first two laps getting by Mitch, you do wonder if he's maybe got a different plan and he's trying to do a two-stop here, because that, you know, he just seemed to be in a hurry to get away, whereas you say the likes of SGP and Demon they've dropped off the back of the leader, so they're clearly already thinking longer about a one-stop and then preserving the fuel.
Hey got up the inside of Fluffy there. It looked a bit close, Gary.
It did, yeah. It looks like in possible races. He's found a bit of pace in this car and he's looking a bit racy.
Oh, that he is. He's having a look at the inside of Fluffy. Oh, he's backed out of it. Oh, I thought he'd have gone for that.
Oh, he's got run wide at the exit as well. He's lost a couple of places.
Well, sometimes being cautious can result in having accidents. Although never trust a fart. Jason heading Fluffy at the moment. Yeah, someone did just get on the grass there. Someone's had a bit of a spin. I think that may have been Hay. As Fluffy making the move on Jason. Nice overtake on the hairpin. I will mention a little bit about the track now. This Lake Maggiore GP circuit is a fantastic track, as Artpal looks like he's letting Jason and SRI back through. Yeah, the first sector is all sort of high-speed flowing corners with a fantastic banked hairpin as the guys get bunched. And then we're into the S's section here, where it's a little bit like Maggots and Beckett's, where it gets slower and slower and then tightens up in this corner. We may see cars dipping wheels in the grass there as Dave Harp's all out of shape. Then we're into an extremely awkward downhill left-hand corner where you have to go slower than you really feel you need to, but it is a slow corner as Artpal looking to making a move on SRI, can't get it done. And then we're into that final sector, which is all about slow speed, tricky little corners, change of direction. You can go flat out through this right-hander, but then we're into basically two hairpins, and Jason having a look at the inside of SRI. I don't think SRI had his sirens on then, because yeah, Jason gave him no room. Nearly in the wall as well.
Yeah, this track, it's fantastic in the high-speed corners. Those last two corners we saw there, very technical, with with the torque of this car.
Ooh.
It's so easy to make a mistake. Oh, take the heart! Oh, that was came from nowhere there. He's got it done. Good move. And yeah, I don't think Jason knew much about it, but
No, it's put Jason off now as well, because Gary's just come past, and Hayes there as well. But I mean, that may be the difference of somebody just showing that little bit of caution through the first couple of corners, maybe fuel saving, and someone that may not be fuel saving in Dave the Harp, who's gone into there at full speed. And yeah, because that's the thing, if you're not fuel saving, the way you attack this track is very, very different. You'll be so much faster through the first couple of corners. Dave the Harp now coming under a bit of pressure though from Gary and Hay and Jason down in towards the fast S's that then turn into the slower S's. Was somebody off there?
it looked like there was a yellow car off, but then maybe they got it together. I think it was Hay, but yeah, that's one of those corners, those S's there. You don't really want to be going 2 by 2 through there. It really is just one line at that kind of speed.
Jason
Whereas
up the inside.
Yeah. Whereas here, nice corner, 2 or 3 wide through there, lots of space, and yeah, you can see the good racing that's possible through this section.
Yeah, Hay just had a cheeky look up the inside of Dave the Harp there. He's on the outside now, but Dave's going to have the inside line. Now we're getting to the tight, tricky corners. How do you feel about these corners at the end of the track, Gary?
I think they're quite tricky. You just got to be very cautious in this car, because slow speed in this car is really, really difficult. Too much steering lock and putting the power down there.
Cutting the grass.
Oh, you can tell Demon R's been off there a few times, because that normally would be a spin. As soon as he went off, he knew exactly how to keep that point of this straight line.
Sorry to cut you off there, Gary. Yeah, carry on.
Yeah, the slow speed corners of this car is a bit tricky. It's more suits the fast corners. It's easy to spin it in this car in slow speed. It's a bit awkward in this car.
Yeah.
But high speed that's where it really suits this car. And the downforce, you can really push the downforce in the car and feel where to push the car.
Absolutely. Just want to mention we're 6 laps into this race already, so if anybody is going to be doing a 2-stop strategy, then we're probably going to be seeing them pitting now or on lap 7 or lap 8. With it being 22 laps, really, the basic stint. Oh, that's the corner I said we'll see cars off, and Fluffy was off. He's managed to survive, which would hint that he's done that a few times as well. He's now got Gary all up his rear wing. Yeah, so if the 2-stop strategy basically would be a 7 laps, and an 8 lap stint at the end, and that'd allow you to really push. Jason, though, I don't think he's had a lot of practice around this track. Looking at the pace he's running at the moment, he's in the 144s, which is kind of front runner fuel saving pace, so maybe he is just trying to save a bit of fuel, and we'll see how he gets on. I mean, at the last race he pitted very early, if I remember rightly, but not on this occasion. Hay and Formula Gary still battling it out down the main straight there, as Jason has actually just dipped into the 142s, so he has picked the pace up a little bit. He's now got SRI. Just in front of him is Gary and Hay side by side. No, sorry, yes, it is Hay. They were side by side through turn 1 there, and now Jason has got Hay all over the back of him now.
Yeah, looking at the track map, the front two have made a gap now that look like Steve F1 and Mitch are a good 3-4 seconds ahead of Connor in third. So yeah, this is about the time we're going to find out what the strategies are.
I'll tell you what, Gary's strategy is here is go around the outside of 2 cars and overtake them in the hairpin. That was quite interesting actually, because Jason and Hay got side by side through the fast corners. That allowed Gary to close in and go around the outside. Lovely bit of driving there. Well done, Gary.
Yeah,
that was terrible though, that was shocking. Oh, he nailed Jason. Oh. Oh god, I didn't even know that was going to happen. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. Interestingly, it looks like Demon R is now closing in on the back of Conrad. Demon R's pace every lap in the 143s, that's definitely fuel saving pace. Conrad has dropped off the back of the leading 2, which would hint that he has lifted his pace off a little bit, so perhaps trying to stretch the fuel out. But Demon R closing in on him. This is kind of a tricky situation, because I think Demon R would expect Steve and Mitch to pit now if they're doing the 2-stop strategy, but they haven't pitted. Okay, so maybe they're going in to pit on the next lap. But this is a crucial point. If anyone's doing the 2-stop, this is a crucial point for those 1-stoppers to lose a little amount of time as possible now, as Demon Eyes just got into the 142s. And SGP is following along, so very interesting to see what's going to happen. I mean, I would suggest that with the gap between the front two and Connor and Demon are here, it does look like Steve and Mitch are on the 2-stop strategy.
Yeah, I think if anyone is doing a 2-stop, it's really is going to be this lap they're coming in now. Anything, maybe lap 9.
Medic.
Yeah, Art Bowles just found out how to headbutt a steering wheel.
You think the vaccine gives you headaches? That definitely is going to show you what.
Yeah, it definitely is. Obviously, I'm not aware if I couldn't tell if he was nudged over there, or the camera angle I had didn't help at all. But into the barrier he went nonetheless. Hay coming under pressure now from Rich and trying to put pressure on Gary, but these S's, that's not really a good place to try and overtake, because really to maximise it you need to be in the right position. Okay, so the leaders are heading into the final few corners. Hay still trying to battle Gary. Steve Fon, keep an eye on that track map for us, and let's have a look, see if Steve Fon and Mitch do dive in to the pits as Hay gets ahead of Gary here. And as you mentioned, Gary, Hay showing some decent pace recently.
He is also, and what I've noticed on this track is the inside seems to have a lot more grip than the outside, so definitely benefits making the overtake on the inside. But then saying that, a few laps ago, Gary did a nice overtake on the outside.
That is true. Well, I mean, I can mention about why that would have been at that point, but the leaders did not pit. Okay, now I think if they haven't pitted now, maybe they are going for the 1-stop strategy. Demon R's been into the 42s once again. He's making the move now on Connor. I think he's realised he's got to get a shift on, because if Steve F1 and Mitch are not 2-stopping, then he's got about 6 seconds, something like that he's behind. So yeah, he can't really afford to let them keep disappearing. Conrad bump drafting Demon R, there's not a bad option if he needs to save a bit of fuel. We saw Twilight pit a moment ago as well, and he had 10% of fuel left. He could have gone an extra lap, but he chose not to. That would suggest a 2-stop for me.
Yeah, now you can see SGP watching this, and he's closing in as well here. He's probably bringing on to this as well, and I haven't picked the pace before there.
Yeah, I'm guessing. I'm guessing what you said, because you broke up. It was something about SGP twigging on, I think, to what's happening with the leaders here. You'd be you'd be absolutely right. I think he is. I mean, SGP's got a choice. I mean, well, he's kind of a bit out of the championship fight now with 2 12th place finishers. Conrad into the pits.
But the front two stayed out, so they're now, they're going a bit further than we probably expected them to go, given their pace. So,
Powell's wide. He nearly got into the grass there. He was trying to give Gary room. Gary goes into the pits.
Rich in the background as well.
He did indicate.
Did he indicate? I didn't see.
I did. I remember.
Fair enough. Okay, Conrad coming out of the pits. I don't think. Oh no, he's off! He's off! Turn 1! Oh dear, the cold tyres coming out of the pits. Now is not the time to go pushing that car. Fluffy is going to try making some moves on Rich by the looks of it. I think Fluffy may have already pitted. Yes, he has. So Rich hasn't pitted yet, I don't think, unless he pitted early. But Conrad's under pressure now from Fluffy. But if you you want to hold the position, but at the same time you've got to clean your tyres up and get them back up to temperature. I thought he was going wide there. I think though Twilight and Connor have both pitted at a point where there's no chance of them getting to the end without stopping again, unfortunately. If Connor had gone one more lap, he may have been able to stretch the next stint, but I would perhaps hope that what he's done is realised he can't get to the end, short-filled it, and he'll do a a short stint a little later on as well. Steve F1 still leading the way as he comes around the final corner. Mitch closing Steve into the pits then. Let's see how much fuel he's got. 4%, so he couldn't get to the 11th lap. The question is, can he do 12 laps in the second stint? I guess we'll find out. Mitch, though, is carried on. Maybe Mitch would have been better following him in there.
Yeah.
Oh, God!
Oh, he's got dipped one on the grass there, but yeah, Steve F1, he could get a bit of an undercut here, but then it will come down to whether we can do the 12 laps, you say. And it'll be interesting to see where Connor fits into this, because he pitted the lap before, so has that off just cost him a bit of a chance of an undercut?
I think it may have done. Rich Blues has just dived into the pits as well, so Fluffy fighting his position as Steve F1 has come out ahead of them. Conrad, is he going to try and pounce now? Fluffy got a little bit out of shape, but he's got the inside line, and yeah, not a lot Conrad could do about that. Steve F1, as I mentioned, has come out ahead of them, so the undercut for Connor hasn't worked, unfortunately, with the off at turn 1 and dipping a wheel a little later on in the lap as well. So yeah, a bit costly for Conrad, but hopefully he's realised that he's not going to be getting to the end on the amount of fuel that he'll have in his car. Oh, Fluffy! Oh!
That's just made it a bit easy for Conrad. But yeah, I was just about to say before you said that, it looked like Conrad was pushing to get past that definitely, and it looked like a first stopper definitely.
Yeah, he definitely was on a charge to try and get past. Oh, and he's definitely on a charge now. I mean, that's the thing, if you're doing a one-stop strategy, you can't really be pushing it. As Mitch comes around the final corner and into the pits he goes with 10% of fuel. He could have gone another lap.
Wow. That's impressive for Mitch, that he was keeping pace with Steve F1 and clearly was saved a good 10% extra fuel, so that shows that his pace was actually very good to go that far. It's
not just an extra 10% of fuel, it's actually more than that, if you think about it, because Steve F1 pitted at the end of lap 10, so Mitch... Oh, Conrad, no! Into the barrier on the far... Oh, and it's collected! Hey, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. That's unfortunate. I feel for Connor. You know what? He's had a brilliant championship so far. He's been unlucky. It's so easily done though into that particular barrier. Getting back to Mitch, he could have gone the extra lap, given himself a shorter stint. But if he had have done, Demon R would have pitted anyway and may have got an undercut on him. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see how that kind of plays out. I mean, to be fair, I think both Steve F1 and Demon R, seeing Mitch pit and have that amount of fuel when he pitted, that's a bit of a sort of kick in the gut, because he's got the pace and he's been looking after his fuel. If he has another stint like that, he's going to be hard to beat here today. But also, where is Steve F1 in comparison to Mitch? Steve is behind him, so there was no undercut.
Yeah, that's bad news for Steve F1. I think pitting that lap early, we really needed to get that undercut. Well, he was leading the race, so he's actually lost the lead. And look at Demon R, who was 6 seconds off the back of them. He's now only a good about 2 seconds behind Steve F1. So,
not just that, with Mitch having that amount of fuel left, that's really going to benefit him for this next stint, because he's going to have a shorter pit stop. And Steve F1's going to be on left fuel, and that's going to benefit Mitch for the next pit stop, for having more fuel on a shorter pit stop. So
if they pit again, which I don't know if they're going to be doing, SGP's into the pits. I mean, he will have had a shorter pit stop than Steve F1 did, which would have helped against the undercut. And just to let you know, Gary, you were breaking up a little bit there. I was able to tell what you were saying. Anybody else, I mean, if they're Scottish, they'll be all right. But yeah, basically you were saying that at the next stops, Mitch would have less fuel to put in, but it's worked out that in the stops they've just done, Mitch had less fuel to put in, and it results in a faster pit stop. The difficulty for Steve F1 now, though, is he's in a situation where he can't push. If he pushes, he burns too much fuel, he won't get to the end. Or he can push and go really fast, but then he'll have to pit, and that'll cost him 25 seconds as Fluffy trying to make a move on SRI into the hairpin. Twilight is doing quite well at the moment in 6th place, ahead of Conrad. And then we've got Fluffy and SRI, as I mentioned. Artpal, though, leading the race, actually hasn't stopped yet, and I don't think Dave the Harp has either. So Steve mentioned that the one-stop should be doable here, and to be fair, Artpal and Dave the Harp might be showing that, yeah, it really is. But then, oh no, Connor! He's dipped a wheel, he's spun it round. Oh, he nearly collected. I think SGP may have followed him as well. So SGP having come out of the pits recently, that's not going to have worked for him. Wow! What is that noise?
That's unfortunate.
Whatever that noise is, that is unfortunate. Holy cow!
Is that worse now?
Yeah. Holy! It sounded like you just stood at the front of the Titanic and was lifted up by I was going to say Paolo Di Canio, but that'd be quite funny to see actually.
We'll have to leave it without the headphones in then.
Okay, that's better. But I forgot what I was saying now. Yeah, so SGP's come out of the pits. It's not gone well for him with going off there, but he's in a position where he can push. And Steve, I was going to ask you, with Artpal and Dave the Harp, who have pitted, by the way, what's the benefit of them going as long as they did?
Well, I suppose initially it's putting them out in front where they can just have a bit of clear air to just run their own race. But now when they pit, they will just be able to, as long as they put the right amount of fuel, they'll just be able to gun it to the end. So they may well come out the back, but they'll probably be able to push that bit harder, and they'll hope to use that to be able to come through at the end.
Quite possibly. I think Artpal has come out in 9th place, so Dave the Harp's going to be somewhere around that as well. So yeah, he should be able to push. Let's see what's Mitch been doing. Steve F1's been in the 144s consistently. Demon R has just dipped into the 143s, but Demon R will know that Steve F1's got the extra lap to do. How far? I tell you what though, Mitch has got a decent gap here. I think that is clearly the benefit of having that shorter pit stop, really.
Yeah, I think Mitch is just running a straightforward race of two halves, 2 11-lap stints, and he's just running at that same pace. Whereas, yeah, Steve F1 had that shorter first stint where he could push, but now you can see his lap times have really dropped off. Now he's having to save fuel. So yeah, Mitch he's really seems to have got this strategy spot on today.
Yeah.
And he's checked out in this race, I think, already.
I think you might be right. I mean, interestingly for Demon R, if he wants to try and catch Mitch, he's going to have to pick the pace up. But if you pick the pace up, you're going to burn the fuel. So you've kind of got to do it in a very calculated way, and that might be why we're seeing him not sort of attack too aggressively on Steve F1 here, as he has a look up the inside into the hairpin, but doesn't go for it. It wasn't like it was a committed move, that. And it's interesting, if Steve F1's saving fuel, he's not doing it on the straight there. Demon R tucking in behind. It'd be difficult to overtake down here, but I mean, it's kind of catch-22 for Demon R, really. Oh, that was close. In that, if he slipstreams Steve F1, he'll save fuel, but really, he could do with catching Mitch. But having said that, Steve F1 is currently leading the championship, I believe, by 1 point from Demon R. Mitch is 5 points back. So really, Mitch winning and Demon R ignoring what Mitch is doing and just focusing on, right, beat Steve F1 may benefit Demon R in the championship.
Yeah, exactly, because I suppose Steve F1, he could let Demon R go and then hope that he can hold him, battle Mitch and allow him to sort of catch up, but maybe he's also thinking, yeah, I'm 1 point ahead of Demon R here, so this is the championship fight, and I don't want to let him through.
If Mitch goes on to win this race, it's going to tighten things up a little bit in the standings. Twilight, interestingly, sitting in 4th place as SRI pits. He must be on a 2-stop strategy. Pitting at this point, it would be the right kind of point to pit for your second stop. Demon Art closing in on the back of Steve F1 once again. I think Steve F1 is definitely saving fuel through this first sector because Demon Art is able to close right in. He's backed off there because of the amount of speed he was carrying on the way into the corners. So yeah, it's kind of catch-22, not catch-22. It's two different scenarios. One driver who is saving considerable amount of fuel, and another driver who is trying to save fuel but also push. It's difficult. David Harp and Art Pal going at it as they make their way towards the fast S's, and David Harp slots through. Nice move. Is Fluffy going to attack as well? I think he might. I think he is. Oh, Demon Art, do you want to get any closer? Oof.
Look at Twilight closing on these two. Twilight's having a really strong run here. I don't know what strategy he's on, but yeah, he's got the pace to. He's closing in on them. So.
He is.
Forward side by side through here. This is they've just about got away with it, but yeah, it's always a bit of a risk going side by side through there.
I love it when I stay silent to see how long it takes for someone to talk.
I'll just make sure that I was at the right point because it paused as I put my brick dust headphones in.
Right, okay. I have just remembered as well, there will be a moment about 36 minutes in where there'll be a momentary pause that we'll need to kind of ignore and carry on. Okay, what's the situation now? Twilight is into the pits. He pitted at the end of lap 9, so I was thinking he may not be able to get to the end, but he definitely had great pace. He was catching the lead in 3. The question is, where's he going to come out now, and what can he do about it? Demon R still stuck, I would now say, behind Steve F1. I mean, they're in the 43s, which is a fairly decent pace, but if Demon R wants to catch Mitch... Oh, that's close. That's very close. Oh, that's even closer. A little bit sideways. Side by side. No. I suddenly turned Irish. No. Side by side. No.
Yeah, Steve F1's making it very difficult here for Demon R to make the pass.
Well, the interesting thing here is as well, Demon R making the move now into the fast S's, and Steve F1 not fighting that one too much. I don't blame him. I mean, he may have got caught out a little bit in the previous lot of corners, so perhaps choosing not to fight that one too much. But also for Steve F1, maybe it's a case of, you know what, I've pushed hard for a fair few laps. I need to take it easy for a lap or two. Just make sure I've got that fuel and can always have a real good push on the final lap. Conrad closing in. He's had an adventurous race, closing in on the back of Art Pal, who has been passed by Dave the Harp. We saw that earlier, with Art Pal and Dave the Harp being first and second in the race a while ago, and now they're in 5th and 6th, so they're doing really well actually. Conrad makes the move on Art Pal, and to be fair, it's sensible in a way for Art Pal to not to fight that too much and see how he gets on the exit of the corner, which is exactly what he's done, and now he's in a position to retake the place off Conrad, but he's going to try and go around the outside, and he does. But yeah, for Dave and Art Pal, they're in a brilliant position at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, they're fighting with Connor here, let's not forget, was up in the top 3 at the beginning of the race. We know he's got real pace, so I know Connor's had his issues in this race, but Dave the Harp and Art Pal to be up there battling with him shows, they're doing a really good job.
That they are. It'd be interesting as well to see what Twilight can do with him recently pitting. He's catching up to the back of them, so he's going to get involved in this fight as he closes in on the back of Art Pal. Can't quite see if he's going for the move yet. No, he's not. Conrad runs a little bit wide. Should be able to get that tucked back in though. I've got to say though, Mitch, I think he's gone. The gap between himself and second place, it's huge. It's about 9 seconds now. Oh, Twilight going for the move. Fluffy going for the move on Twilight. Not quite done. And here comes SRI to make things even more spicy.
Yeah, Mitch in a position now where he can just cruise. He doesn't need to take any risks with that kind of gap. So he wouldn't have maybe got more in reserve if he needed to push. So that's Demon R off the track.
Yeah, I think Gary might be slightly ahead of us if you saw that happening. But yeah, I was thinking, what's he doing at? I know they got a bit close, did SRI and Fluffy, and then I realised, but yeah, that's just massively compromised Demon R going off there. I mean, he's kept it straight, but he's now got dirty tyres, and the gap he'd pulled away from Steve F1 has just disappeared. I mean, let's see, his lap times were 43s and 44s. I think that one might be a bad one. May not get to see what lap time is done as we have a look back at Art Pal, SRI, Twilight and Fluffy. So this is Fluffy going in there a bit hot. This is the interesting sort of battle of the two stoppers going on here with Conrad, who may still have a pit stop to do. Surely not. I can't remember if he's done his second stop or not.
It'd be late to make another stop now. I think with 3 laps to go, I presume he's going to the end now. And oh, here's SRI. Seen him in a
Hey.
Oh, yeah. Hey, what? Hey. Look, yeah, press pause for 2 seconds, Gary. I know you want to be in front, but in the commentary box is not the place to be in front. Art Puff trying to fend off SRI, Twilight coming in there as well. But yeah, this being the battle of the two stoppers I'm trying to mention. And oh yeah, Twilight, oh he's binned it, oh dear. I don't know if he was assisted there. Maybe Gary could look into his crystal bollocks and find out. SRI
2 seconds as well.
Alright, I'll pause it for another second. Art Power has been passed now by SRI. Can SRI do anything about Conrad? Probably. Will it be anything nice? Doubtful. Let's have a look on the track map. Mitch coming around the final corner now. The gap he's got to... Oh, Art Power with a cheeky move up the inside of SRI. Nicely done. I think his confidence is growing a bit, is Art Power's, the more he's driving this car and driving against these guys.
Yeah, and just looking back at that incident for Twilight, he's going to be kicking himself there because he was probably on for a really good result without that mistake. He was able to push to the end, and I think he could have probably been at the front of this battle without that spin.
Yeah, definitely. As SRI and Fluffy bumping doors a little bit down the main straight. Make sure you give each other a bit of room there, boys. SRI slips into the slipstream. Fluffy tries to go defensive. SRI gives him a boost around the corner. You do realise you've just helped him make an overtake, Ray. You're meant to be passing him, not helping him pass. Oh, he's not completed it. Oh, and it's not Fluffy. Sorry, my mistake. And maybe he needs a new paint job. It is a different yellow, honest.
Yeah, they are easy to confuse, aren't they?
Yeah.
What have we got going on here? Hey, try and have a look back at the inside of Art Power. SRI getting impatient behind him. Just about through on the exit.
There's going to be 3 yellow cars in a minute with all the paint rubbing on the SRI.
You could be right. I think though, what just happened to SRI there, I think may have been what happened to Twilight. I think there was a little bit of a wobble maybe from SRI that gently touched Twilight, and that caused the dipping of the wheel onto the grass. But as we've only got a couple of laps to go now, the battle in this pack is pretty mental. Basically 5th on down, and there was that momentary halt. So yeah, 5th down. I mean, David Harper's in 5th, and he is there. No, that's Conrad. Dave's there in the purple one. So the battle for 5th is on as the 4 wide into the left-hander. This is going to get nasty if they don't sort this out. Art Pal, though, now closing in on the back of Conrad. Interesting. I like to see this.
Yeah, I thought Connor would have the pace to actually get to the front of this pack and then just pull away, but he hasn't been able to, has he? Art Pal is not giving this one up, and he's coming back again at Connors. This is interesting to see. And he's passed him. What a move around the outside. Art Pal, as you say, he's got some confidence in this car now, it seems.
Oh yeah, he has. He will have no fears about his fuel situation because he went so long on that first stint. So yeah, fantastic overtake. Now David Harper has managed to pull away. Hopefully he'll be able to continue growing that gap, because the last thing Dave would want now is for this gaggle of cars to close in on him. As Fluffy having a look up the inside of Conrad. I don't know if Conrad realised he was there, but yeah, Fluffy made the move, and that has now compromised Conrad a little bit as Fluffy goes defensive. Oh, this is going to close them up. SRI and Jason there as well, and Hay closing in. Oh,
hold your breath through it, guys.
Yeah, it's not over yet. Oh, okay, well done. They've done well there to get through. That could have easily ended up in an absolute plane crash. But it's not over. Fluffy's still trying to make the move. SRI's having a look, but he knows there's nowhere to go. Jason looking as well. I've got to say, it's a brilliant battle going on this. I mean, Connor will not want to be in this position, but to be fair, they're having a cracking fight. He and Fluffy, as SRI is still there. Jason having a cheeky. Oh, Fluffy! Oh no, he's binned it.
I know he's got into motocross, but that's just taking the mick, that is.
It is. I don't know. He can cope with jumps and all that thing, but he can't cope with a little corner. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. Dave the Harp, he's been caught a little bit now, you know, I think, by Arpal and Conrad. It'll be interesting for Jason firing up the inside of Hay there. May have been slightly aggressive. Not what we'd usually see from the Swedish. Conrad was massively sideways. Just to mention as well, we are on the last lap of the race. Hopefully the pack cam has been of use to you, more use than us commentators have been today. Probably. It's quite late and I'm gagging for a drink and some, I was going to say food, but I've had my dinner. Arpal looks a bit wide, not as wide as Conrad. Manages to avoid the barrier though, and I'm right, they are closing in on Dave the Harp. Dave the Harp, this is not the time to start losing ground to these guys. It's the last lap of the race. The race leader Mitch is only 3 corners away from the end and taking the win. Oh, but what's going to happen here to Dave the Harp and the pack?
Is Dave running low on fuel, or has he cooked his tyres?
We'll find out. Mitch coming around the final corner then. What a victory this will be for him. Absolutely brilliant. Lake Maggie. Oh, Demon R got massive sideways into the final corner there. Needs to make sure he gets to the finish line ahead of Steve F1. He does it. So Mitch takes the win. Demon R second. Steve F1 takes third. SGP is going to be fourth place for him. Oh, and then in the back, who was that that's gone?
I think it was
Twilight
Twilight caught these guys up on the last lap and then it's binned it.
Oh dear, oh dear. Dave the Harp, can he fend them off? Can he hold on to take fifth place? Oh, someone's off! SRI spinning and into the pit lane. Dave the Harp holds on to fifth place and it's close between Hay and Jason. I think it was. Oh dear, SRI, someone ban him for trying to finish the race in the pits. And yeah, you mentioned Twilight had a moment, and there he goes, crossing the line in 12th place. And formerly Gary, I don't know what happened to him. It looks like he pitted on lap 20, so maybe it was a fuel issue there. So yeah, formerly Gary's going to cross the line in 12th place, I believe. Is that right?
Yes.
No.
I thought it was 13.
It should be 13th place. Maybe somebody has left the lobby already. I'm pretty sure it's 13th place, because Rich Blues was running 14th, I thought, but Rich Blues unfortunately did not finish. Because Jimmy wasn't able to make the start of the race because of internet connection issues, and Bunsell wasn't there. So yeah, maybe someone did leave the lobby much quicker, which adjusted what looked like the finishing positions there. Bit confusing.
I'll put the extra points though.
You know what? It might be because SRI ended up in the pits. But yeah, very unusual end to the race.
Yeah, I mean, we have to say, well done to Mitch. I mean, just in a classic zone in that race. I think in qualifying he was half a second faster than everybody else, and maybe he was just biding his time at the start of the race because he just checked out after the first pit stop. So yeah, absolutely well deserved from him.
He's definitely coming of age, isn't he? Showing a much better racecraft. I mean, Mitch from more than a couple of championships ago, in that opening stint, would have perhaps reacted to Steve F1 taking the lead of the race. But instead, Mitch played a very sensible race, kept the pressure on Steve F1, and save the fuel while he was doing it. Brilliant to see. That really is going to close things up in the championship standings. I mean, Demon R and Steve F1, they were close to each other, but nowhere near close enough to Mitch. SGP looked like he changed his strategy a little bit, went longer than Mitch did in that first stint, perhaps to try and have a faster second stint, but wasn't quite able to close the gap. I've got to say that I feel for Twilight, because when he was running in 4th place and closing in on those leading 3, I was thinking, hang on a minute, is he on for a chance of a podium here? But unfortunately, he did need to make the pit stop, which isn't really a problem. The 2-stop, it would have worked for him. But unfortunately, a couple of incidents after making the pit stop, and yeah, the chance was gone. I mean, I don't know what else to really say about that. For Conrad, he's had a brilliant race early on, and then got unfortunate after pitting. I don't know if he took new tyres or not, but it would appear that he had cold tyres coming out of the pits, because the car just pretty much went straight on. And I mean, as you two know, I'm sure, if you come out of the pits and then go off straight away, that's going to affect the whole rest of your race, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's just not just the time loss, but it's the tyres as well, isn't it? As soon as you lose the temperature in the tyres, it can take a good lap or two to get the grip back, so you just costs you more and more time, one off, and then you just lose more and more time on the back of it. Yeah,
and it can knock the confidence as well. It makes you think, oh, is he going to have the grip in the next corner? And it can go on. I've got to say, Dave Harp had a good race. Art Powell, he had a very good race, I've got to say, for a fairly still new driver. For him to be able to go sort of wheel to wheel with Dave the Harp and Conrad, that's not shabby, to be fair.
What I found with Arpal is that he seems to have picked things up very, very quickly in this league, and it seems to be paying off for him.
That it does. Who else was there? SRI, his first race of the championship, was going fairly well until he decided to make a late pit stop on the last lap of the race, and yeah, losing positions. Nice start points, but not many points in the championship for him. Looked like Gary had a tough race out there. Looked like Hay was getting in the thick of things. Fluffy was unlucky with a couple of spins late on. But I mean, as you said, Gary, this car can be a bit tricky in those slow corners, and if you're in the middle of a fight with 3 or 4 other cars, it's going to be even trickier.
Yeah, I mean, for me in this car, I think, well, especially that race, I decided to change my strategy, and just trying to short shift and save fuel. It doesn't work for me, and I was just going backwards, and then you get paranoid. You've not got enough fuel, and then at the end I was like a minute and 15 behind. But I decided to carry on, just to do a bit of a learning process to see how I could learn going forward. But yeah, it's, for me, I'm struggling with pitting and fuel and losing so much time, because obviously on the game now you lose in realistic time
25-ish seconds.
Yeah. So it's and I think I don't know if it's just myself, or if you're struggling with that, and then it's just you're trying to catch up. By the time you've caught up, then you're paranoid, you keep looking at your fuel, and then you're going backwards again instead of going forward.
Yeah. I mean, it is obviously a new thing in the championship with the longer pit stops. I mean, there's I'll get on to something in a moment about the next race, but it's one of those things where because it's something new, it can affect you negatively, as in, like, all of a sudden you go from being, saying you could be in 5th place, you pit, and then you last, and you're like, how? But it's just one of those things where you have to go, well, everybody's going to lose that time at some point, and if you all last, the amount of boost you're going to get is going to give you 6 seconds a lap. So you don't need to push, because if you push too hard, you'll burn too much fuel. But if you just drive sensibly and still take that 6 second a lap bonus, you won't burn up the fuel. And within 6, 12, 18, 24, within 4 laps, you get the time back. So yes, it costs a lot of time in the pits, but if you come out at the back, you can get a lot of that time back very quickly. And in a way, that's where it's a bit perhaps harder for the drivers at the front, because let's say if someone in at front pits and comes out in third place, having lost 25 seconds, the amount of boost that they're going to get is minimal, so they're not going to make up any bonus time with that. So it is a bit of a weird way of things happening, but it's one of those things where you just kind of have to go, you know what, everybody's going to take that hit in one way or another. I mean, you look at it in this race, 22 laps, Steve F1 and Demon R were doing 143s, 144s. That's about a second and a half off the pace for a two-stop strategy. If one of those guys was going to do a two-stop, it would have been high 141s, low 142s. So they're about a second and a half to 2 seconds off. Well, it only takes 12 laps for them to have lost the pit stop time, compared to the two-stop. So yeah, you might not spend 24 seconds in the pits doing doing one stop. You'll pit once, but you won't lose that extra 24 seconds. I will get this one eventually. But you're going to have to drive potentially 22 seconds or 24 seconds slower over the course of a race. So one way or another, you're going to pay that time, whether it be on your lap time or in the pits. And it is a fine choice of what to do regarding that. What I will say is though, the next race is an anomaly, and I don't know if drivers will have received a message or a post prior to this video being shown, but you should be receiving something to do with the next track, because the next track is again a bit of an anomaly in which everybody at some point will find themselves a lap down.
Yeah.
Now, that's one of those things that if people are not aware that that is what will happen, then they may get very disheartened. You may even find yourself a couple of laps down at some point. However, things will pan out. And the reason being is, at the next track, the pit stop time to stop and fill the tank, I think, is 29 seconds. The lap time is 24 seconds. So if you pit, you're going to go a lap down. There's no way of avoiding that. So everyone's going to need to be aware that when you pit, you're going to end up a lap down. And when that happens, you're going to have boost, so you're going to have to be careful and sensible, and everyone's going to have to be sensible. But like I said, you could end up a couple of laps down and get very disheartened, or at that moment you go, well, I'm a couple of laps down, but it doesn't matter because I've got the boost, and I'm going to pull that time back. And you don't have to do anything crazy to get that time back. You just have to make sure you keep driving clean and keep the speed up, and things will pan out for themselves. Again, it's one of those tracks where it's an anomaly. So for example, you could find yourself in a crash, and unfortunately you could end up being a lap down. Again, that's where I would highly recommend to people, don't get disheartened. It could happen to anyone at any time, and the boost there is there to help you in that situation. So I don't know how to really put this. It's the oddest of situations, with it being the first of the oval tracks or oval type tracks that we'll have raced on. And it's going to bring some scenarios which none of us are really used to. And the best way we can deal with it is perhaps with confidence, communication, and just having fun, enjoying it, and realising that, you know what, sometimes shit's going to happen and there's fuck all you can do about it. The best thing you can do is smile and carry on. So it's definitely going to be a learning experience for all of us. I'm making it sound a little bit stressful now, but it should be. pretty good fun. It should be fun. It should be mental. It'll be interesting. But yeah, it's just, if people do find themselves in a slightly odd situation, don't panic. Things can come back to you if you just keep on going.
Just a quick question on that one. The pit stop you said was it 29 seconds?
It's about that, yeah.
Would it matter if you, for example, obviously if you have an empty tank, it's going to be a long pit stop, and obviously change tyres as well. But if you for example just use a quarter of a tank or half a tank, would it be a less
Yes,
stop time?
it would be a quicker pit stop, yes.
So that would be, yeah.
Yeah, so
But
if
would
you...
still lose, so you wouldn't lose 29 in what would be...
Well, off the top of my head, full tank 29 seconds. If you had half a tank and you filled half a tank, it's probably going to cost you about 26 maybe. So, I mean, the thing is, it's a lot of laps at that race. But the thing is as well, with the way the boost works, it's going to be a bit weird. If you were thinking, okay, could I pit and not go a lap down? It's not even worth trying to work out, because you would end up having to pit so many times that you would end up being a lap down anyway. So you might as well just accept that whenever you pit, you're going to be a lap down, and at some point those cars that were ahead of you will also pit, and they will then be a lap down. Because if me and you were racing side by side and you pit before I do, as long as you have an okay out lap, you're going to be in front of me, because you're going to undercut me. So even though you will be a lap down from me, when I pit, I'm going to be behind you.
Yeah. And you've got to think, every time you go in the pits, you lose 12 seconds before you put the fuel in. You're giving away 12 seconds straight away regardless, and then the fuel on top. So if you keep short filling it, you're giving away 12 seconds every time you come in.
Yeah. I mean, go on.
This track also, I mean, I don't know what the minimum speed is, because obviously, with it being an oval, but there is a couple of corners where you've got to do a bit of hard braking before.
There's one.
Would it be possible to run the fuel mixture at the lowest setting, but not lose so much time or speed?
No. It's a really good question, right? And I would genuinely, honestly say, don't touch that fuel gauge. That's fuel time. If you go to engine mode 6 thinking that you're going to save fuel, you're not. Not only are you not going to save fuel, but you're going to lose about 3 seconds a lap. And considering that the lap time is only 24 seconds, that's a hell of a lot of time to lose. So it's not going to take that too many laps until you've lost the amount of time a pit stop would have taken. If you want to save fuel, this works at any track. Use higher gears, shift earlier, and lift off before you apply a brake. So for example, at this next track, you can get around the whole circuit never using 7th gear. However, if you use 7th gear, you automatically save a certain amount of percentage of fuel. Now I know, for example, over a 20-minute stint it was, or something like it was a fairly long stint, by using 7th gear was able to add a considerable number of laps onto how many laps could be done just by putting it into 7th gear instead of holding on to 6th. The other way to save fuel, like I said, is to lift off before braking. Now there's only one corner where you need to brake at this next track, but it's not a hard braking zone. It's only a little bit of brake, because you can still do the corner in 4th gear at quite a high speed. So you don't want to be hard on the brakes and slowing it down, because that burns fuel as well. So you want to be lifting off a little early, gentle on the brakes, time your downshifts, and then short shift your way up. And you can save fuel like that. And if you think as well, if you're in the pack, if you're behind 2 cars, are you going to gain anything by trying to overtake those cars? Or are you just going to end up just in front of them with them right behind you? Whereas you may stay, if you stayed behind them, you slipstream them, bump draft them, you could end up going faster and you could save more fuel, which may help you in the long run. So I definitely would not go down the route of fuel saving at this track. Having said that, someone like Mitch, for example, who is clearly fast, he may just think, you know what, I can go fast enough and save fuel and just keep going and lapping and lapping. Now that's kind of an anomalous situation where if somebody is quick enough to open up a fair enough gap that they can save fuel, they may do it. But it's one of those, a track like this, if you actively try to save fuel and go 2 to 3 seconds a lap slower, it's going to end in disaster, whether it be getting caught or crashes or whatever it may be. It's not going to work.
I mean, if you look at normal oval racing, that's why they're constantly changing over, because the person at the front is using that much fuel. Obviously,
exactly.
bump drafting, saving fuel, aren't you? So
yeah. And not only that, I mean, if someone's bump drafting you, you can always lift off the throttle a little bit. Now you have to be careful, because it may seem like to the person behind that you're on the brakes, but you're not. But if you're being bumped forward, you can take your foot off the throttle a little bit, and then you're not burning enough fuel. But there you go, little tip. Yeah. Now regarding the next track, if any of the drivers have any questions about anything to do with the next track, put messages in, ask on the practice night, because it is an odd one. It's a race we've not done before, and it may end up being a race we'll never do again. We'll soon find out. But yeah, if anyone's got any questions, feel free to ask, but there should be some information going out to the drivers, just to remind them about a few things regarding the next track. And I would highly recommend, even though it is basically an oval, I would highly recommend, if you can get on, even if it's just for 5 minutes, just have a bit of a practice round there to see what it's like with a load of cars around you. It's worth doing if you can.
Yeah, good bank holiday as well, doesn't it?
Yeah. Okay. Before we head over to take a look at the confirmed race result and the championship standings, I just want to ask you, why did the lifeguard have to rescue the old hippie? Because he was far out, man.
Was that your only one? That
was my only one. Yeah, Ray has killed my comedy swagger recently. Yeah, he's driven me to alcohol and one joke at the moment. But yeah, there may be more.
Alcohol rhinoceros.
What?
I'm trying to get a joke out of that. Alcohol anonymous.
You know, there's a story I know about a woman, the woman in Friends. What's her name?
Braniston.
No, the other one plays Monica.
Oh, fuck's sake, what's her name? Courtney Cox.
No, not recently.
There you go, Dave, you made up for it now.
Yeah, right, okay, on that note, let's have a look at the confirmation of the championship standings. Confirmation then, Mitch taking the victory in the maximum 20 points, Demon R finishing in second place with 17, Steve F1 takes 15 points while SGP takes 13 points, Dave the Harp with a brilliant result in 5th place bags 12 points, and Art Pal also 6th place, a great result for him, taking 11 points. Conrad finished 7th, 10 points for him, Jason 8th, he bags 9, Hay in 9th, he bags 8. And in 10th it's Fluffy Planet, 7th for him. SRI finished in 11th place and he also finished in the pits. Twilight finished in 12th and formerly Gary in 13th. Rich Blues unfortunately did did not finish. I was going to say did DNF, and as I mentioned early on, Jimmy was unable to actually start the race. And as you'll notice, no penalties. To be fair, there was no reports placed. Now that's not to say that nothing happened, it just means that nobody reported it. But we can always rejoice with the fact of no penalties, that's for certain. Okay, looking at the standings then, and wow, what a mix-up we've got now. Demon R leading the way, but tied with Mitch, both on 65 points. Steve F1 drops from the lead of the championship down to third, but he's only 1 point behind them. This is going to get spicy. Conrod's in fourth on 50 points, with SGP in 5th on 43. One behind him is Dave the Harp. Got 4 back is Fluffy Planet in 7th place. And then we got Art Pound in 8th place and Twilight in 9th on 28 points. In 10th place we've got Formula Gary on 25 points, and he's joined there by Hay, both of those tied in 10th place. Jason sits 12th with 21 points. Tyler's now 13th place on 13 points. Jimmy 14th place on 11 points. And then we've got Rich Blues and SRI tied for 15th on 6 points each, and Bunsell in 17th place. Okay, the next race, round 5, it's an unusual one. It's the first oval-ish race in the DGT League. It's going to be a 100 laps of the BB Raceway. The laps are going to come round very quickly because it is only about a 23 to 24 second lap time there. Everything would suggest that on an oval it should be easy, but I think it's going to be anything but. Turn 1 is a tricky corner. It's quite high speed, but it is one that you do have to slow down for. And as we mentioned at the end of the race there, when it comes to making a pit stop, you're going to end up a lap down. Well, if you wanted spice, it's definitely going to be there at the BB Raceway. Absolutely anything could happen there. And in the DGT League, anything that usually could happen will. Okay, thanks for watching. Make sure you hit like, subscribe, and hit that bell for notifications. And yeah, thank you very much for joining us. We'll find out what happens at the BB Raceway next time out. Have a good one, everybody. See you again soon.